Ephara, god of the Polis, versus Gonti, lord of luxury. We have a turn 3 Ephara that we can get onto there, so we'll keep that. Mist Meadow Witch on turn 2. Eldrazi Displacer can come in after Ephara so that we get some card draw there. We'll just go in for a tapped Shockland here. We don't want to shock that in later. We'll go over the commanders quickly. I'm excited to see Gonti on the channel because I really like Gonti. Been meaning to build it for a fair old while now. Haven't gotten round to it. A 2/3 Death Toucher for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, it's good that it's not on cast. It's when it enters the battlefield, you exile the top 4 cards of a target opponent's library. One of them goes face down and the rest go on the bottom. And for as long as it remains exiled, you may cast that spell and pay any mana cost you like to, well, not any mana cost, but any coloured mana you like to cast it. So you could exile a mana drain, for instance, and use 2 black to pay for it. Okay, well, we are into a... our opponent's into a Sol Ring, so looks like we are off to the races. We get a turn 2 Ephara, thanks to that mana crypt draw. And our opponent can fix their land next turn if they don't have one already, because they have their expedition map. Most likely go for an Urborg or something like that. But now every creature that we cast will get us a card draw next turn, or I should say every creature that enters the battlefield when Ephara is in play allows us to draw a card the turn after. That's why we have lots of flicker effects and flash creatures and stuff like that in the deck. And other than that, it is an indestructible 6/5, 4 mana, and we need Devotion to Azorius of 7 or greater in order to animate it. Now the problem with playing against Gonti is we don't actually know what card they get. Some really seasoned players that know their decks inside and out, if they ever go to crack a fetch or anything like that, they'll be able to look through their library and try and see which card is missing, but that's difficult in a deck that has 99 cards in it. Go for tails and win the flip. And then I think we are into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, we want to get into Eldrazi Displacer, I think. And then we can get down a Mist Meadow Witch as well. I think that's alright. So let's go for that. 2 of our flicker enablers. Don't really want to overextend, but I don't know if our opponent's going to be wiping the board anytime soon. And there we go. We get a card draw from Ephara because we had a creature enter last turn. Temple of the False God. We're just getting into a lot of mana. Not sure I'm all that happy about getting into so much mana. I'd rather be getting into creatures, but these 2 creatures can flicker each other at least. Okay, Coercive Portal just makes me want to austere command for artifacts. That's actually quite tempting. We have colourless mana off of our Ancient Tomb and Temple of the False God. That is tempting. That will hurt our opponent quite a lot. 2, 4, 6, 2, 4 and 5, not 6. And that will be 6. And I think we can go for destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater, or with CMC 4 or greater, and all artifacts. That will kill our mana crypt. But we'll see if our opponent feels any dismay over this. Gonti does usually want to go back into the command zone so that they can recast it again. But they are quite a ways off recasting Gonti at this point. And luckily for us, they didn't manage to crack their expedition map. Now, if we can start flickering, we'll use the, as it stands now, if I can zoom it in, there we go. We'll use the Eldrazi Displacer to flicker the Mist Meadow Witch So we can go for Temple of the False God for colourless mana. And then once we get into Ancient Tomb, we'll be able to do it during our opponent's turn also. So there we go, we'll just flicker the Mist Meadow Witch here. Probably should have swung in there, it's an extra point of damage. And hopefully they don't have removal for us here. Looks like they're thinking of something. Probably should have held up an extra colourless piece of mana. Target opponent exile. Oh no, sacrifices a creature. I mean, of the two creatures there, yeah, should have held up. No, I don't think it would have helped us actually. Yeah, we'll just get rid of the Mist Meadow Witch here because Eldrazi Displacer is better for us here. Gets it out of their hand at least, and props to our opponent for playing this out because that austere command definitely slowed them down a lot, but as it stands now, and especially without that creature, we don't have a means of having creatures enter the battlefield, so... And there we go, they've got into Gonti straight away. And they get to exile something else from us. We won't see them until the end of the game, or until they play them, because as you can see, they are face down. Okay, Vendilion Click is... Yeah, we'll go for Flooded Strand. And then we can play the Vendilion Click on our opponent's draw phase. So why don't we put a stop on the draw phase, wait for them to draw a card. I'm not going to swing into a Death Toucher for obvious reasons. And we want to get down Ancient Tomb actually so that we can have more colourless sources. And that way we can use Eldrazi Displacer. Oh no, we need 2 blue sources here. Yeah, we'll be able to use Eldrazi Displacer during our turn and during our opponent's turn as well. There's a flash creature. So Eldrazi Displacer is just on defense at the minute. Might have more targeted removal for us. They may even have a counter spell thanks to exiling our graveyard. And there you go, they always get mana drain. I've noticed that. Our opponents always seem to get mana drain with Gonti. Well, it gets it out of their hand. And the best part is that they get the mana right now, thanks to the way mana drain is worded. They get it during the next main phase. So that's 3 mana that they didn't have before. Coming back from that austere command, this is a really good showing for Gonti so far. Okay, Underworld Connections going on an untapped land. So they'll be able to start refilling their hand slowly but surely. And they have managed to keep us from drawing into some more cards next turn because we didn't have a creature enter the battlefield. We'll get the Prairie Stream, that always comes in tapped. Oh, no it doesn't. I'm thinking of a completely different card. This is the one that enters untapped if you have 2 or more basics, which we of course do. And the Eldrazi Displacer can't exile itself, unfortunately, so we are just in top deck mode at this point. And our opponent can draw more cards than us until we get into more creatures. And the problem is that the longer this game goes on, the more likely that they are going to get into some destruction magic for our Eldrazi Displacer. So it's not looking good currently. Had I have held up the colourless mana previously, I would have been able to flicker the Mist Meadow Witch in response to this card, the Tribute to Hunger. That would have meant sacrificing the Eldrazi Displacer, but we would have at least protected Mist Meadow Witch and had it enter the battlefield. Not sure how much difference it would have made. And there we go, Shriekmaw. Really not looking pretty for us now. So there we go. That blows up our Eldrazi Displacer and our opponent is free to swing in at us. They still have one of our cards in exile. We have 2 cards in hand. And we're just drawing into lands. There's Not a whole lot we can do if we just keep drawing into lands. It's just one of those games that it looks like. Our opponent did well too. I mean, this is a good Gonti showing, and it's good to show that you shouldn't quit as well. You shouldn't just quit because your opponent does some obnoxious stuff to you like we did with them with the austere command. They have more lands in hand, and they have really helped rebuild now. Blighted Fen is 5 tap and sack. Target opponent sacks a creature. And they're going to draw a card off the Underworld. What's this one called? Underworld Connections. And we'll just sack the Windswept Heath here. I don't think we have any more tap lands to grab. But we'll have a look. Our opponent's doing something in response. Okay, they go for the Aven Mind Sensor. I actually don't care about that. And that's the card that they had. So now they don't have any more cards exiled for us. Yeah, we have more than enough mana at this point, especially with us being in top deck mode. Be interesting to see if we can find anything though. Yeah, we clear some cards off the top. And yeah, into another land. So, land and pass. This is turning out to be a pretty boring game as it goes on now. I will probably just fast forward through all this, and if anything interesting happens, then, well, you can assume something interesting happens if you're even seeing this video, otherwise I wouldn't even bother uploading it. Now I'm going to plump for the Blighted Fen. As much as I don't want my opponent to keep Cabal Coffers, I think they have as much mana as they could want now with the 4 cards in hand. Obviously getting to more off of Underworld Connections. Yeah, we get into Glenalandra Archmage, so why don't we just go for that? And then maybe at least we can counter something with that mana that they're generating. If they get into a kill spell or something like that, they should be able to fairly easily get into killing off Glenalandra, but hopefully if we counter something on their turn, then we can have Glenalandra re-enter with Persist during their turn, and that will be more card draw for us. It looks like they are going to make use of it now, so we just have to counter that. And then if they want to use more spot removal to get rid of it, that's fine. I'd rather it was being used than being in their hand waiting for something. We get into another creature in Reflector Mage. Not sure what we want to... Yeah, I don't want to bounce the Puppeteer Clique because then they'll be able to use this Glenalandra Archmage against us. Yeah, and they're trying to get us to block with that. I'd rather kill the Clique, to be honest. Still 4 cards in hand, and yeah, they can draw from the Underworld Connections. And they have lots of mana from Cabal Coffers. They tap down the Temple of the False God and the Cabal Coffers, and that gets them 7 mana. Which means they're on 14 mana currently after they've tapped down their swamps. And they opt not to do anything. And yeah, why don't we get into Disenchant on that Underworld Connections. I think it's too little too late at this point. Yeah, we don't want to... Not sure we want to Reflector Mage anything really. But it is card draw for us, so maybe we just have to do it for the card draw. They can take Haven Mind Sensor from us, but that will get exiled, as will Eldrazi Displacer. They can actually use Eldrazi Displacer on their own Gonti, and that will exile something else from our library. Well, we're going to be dealt 5 damage next turn. I think we just have to go for Reflector Mage. Doesn't feel good, but we'll throw away the Puppeteer Click. They can make use of our Eldrazi Displacer if they want to. That'll be turn after next. And doing things this way means that Gonti can't... Well, they can swing into us, but they won't deal any damage to us. They will kill our Reflector Mage thanks to their Death Touch. Maul and Haunt is a means of a creature entering. It's also a means of keeping them off the Puppeteer Click. So if they try and go for the Eldrazi Displacer, we can exile it and get a Spirit onto the battlefield. There we go, we'll just block there. Diabolic Revelation, searching for... Yeah, they put 4 into X, which means they search for 4 cards. They still have 9 mana available to them. Okay, our opponent's done searching. They've decided to plump for Nim Deathmantle. That is a combo card. So they might be going for infinite death triggers and reanimation triggers and all the rest of it. Mimic Vat. Yeah, not sure here. With Nim Deathmantle, you want something like an Ashnod's Altar and a Grave Titan. The 3 of those cards go infinite together. But Nim Deathmantle might just be getting played for getting out a Gonti again. Same with Mimic Vat. They could exile Gonti under the Mimic Vat and get a lot of Gonti triggers that way. Let's go for the Maul and Haunt. And then we want to hold up some colourless mana. We also want to hold up some blue mana. Yeah, I think that's alright, because we are going to Karmic Guide and get back our Eldrazi Displacer. And that'll actually work out quite nicely for us, because that means that we can keep the -1/-1 counters off Glen Elandra. So what will happen is we'll flicker the Glen Elandra Archmage when we think it's fairly safe to do so, with the Eldrazi Displacer, and then it will re-enter without the -1/-1 counter on it, and then we can counter something. It'll come back with Persist, and we can do that for as long as we have the mana. Drawing cards with Ephara again, that's just more mana for us. Not too happy to see that. They can go into the Puppeteer Click now if they want to. We don't know what they tutored for yet. Hopefully it will win them the game. In Garrick's Wake is destroy all creatures you don't control. Now when does this re-enter? Exile another target creature. Yeah, it comes back straight away, so we have to attempt this. Yeah, I'm gonna how do we want to tap our mana? Yeah, I think that is about as safe as we can get here. And now we can counter that. And that means that... Ooh, it does mean that they can exile it off the Mimic Vat. That I did not think about. No, but they choose not to. Yeah, okay, it doesn't work like that, so that's alright then. I didn't think of that, but that is good that it works out that way. We can block Gonti with the Karmic Guide as well, because it has protection from black. Okay, well, we'll have to do it again. Our opponent might be able to get out from underneath this because they have so much mana and so many cards. but we can do it again. Now if they have a destruction spell, they do have Glenalandra Archmage dealt with here. They have 5 cards in hand, so there's every chance. And the reason they're running lots of board wipes is because a Gonti deck, they don't mind Gonti dying. Because if Gonti dies, it means they get to recast it. And if they get to recast it, or more specifically, they have it re-enter the battlefield, then that means that they get to look at the top 4 cards of our library and exile and cast something again if they want to. Now our opponent has slowed down a little bit. See if they've got another board wipe for us. They're pouring a lot of resources into getting rid of our stuff. And what was that they got rid of it with? Profane Command. I assume they gave it -X/-X until the end of the turn. And we are going to... We could flicker the Karmic Guide. I think it might be worthwhile grabbing that Aven Mind Sensor actually, so why don't we put that on first, see what we draw with Ephara, see if that influences our decision any. Mizium Meddler, when it enters the battlefield you can change the target of a spell or ability to Mizium Meddler. How about we go... Yeah, we want to hold up the Moorland Haunt because we might want to exile something from our graveyard if they decide to play that Puppeteer Click. So there we go. We have our creature enter. And we're going to say no to that because that Karmic Guide doesn't exist anymore. And Elspeth, Sun's Champion. Do we want to do that now? Is that too risky? They've gotten rid of their Hero's Downfall, I think. Yeah, Hero's Downfall is gone. Might be a little bit greedy, but I want to try and get something going on our opponent here. I had us out for the count. So we want to try and get some stuff going. That does animate Ephara. The question is, do we want to build a board that can get us into an alpha swing? Or we could just reflect a mage. Yeah, why don't we go for flickering this. That'll get back Reflector Mage. That'll bounce Gonti and clear the way for some damage on our opponent. They won't be able to recast Gonti next turn, but they will be able to do it the turn after. So this way we'll be able to get 9 damage on our opponent, and they can get down... Yeah, they can get down Mimic Vat next turn, get themselves a flyer, but we have a flyer for blocking with as well. Draw a card, thanks to all those creatures that entered last turn. And we do have Teferi, Mage of Zalfir. And that one, each opponent can cast spells only at any time they could cast a sorcery. That would be really good for us to get out, especially if our opponent has anything that can disrupt us. Unfortunately, in order to get rid of Gonti, we had to do that during our turn, so our opponent kind of has free reign now. They have all the mana in the world. One of the cards in their hand is Puppeteer Click, unless they've discarded that and I haven't seen it. Another one is their commander. Okay, Scour from Existent. Yeah, we actually don't care about that anymore, so not too worried about that. It's worthwhile our opponent getting rid of it, of course, because if we can keep recurring creatures, it makes it more difficult for them. There's the Puppeteer Click. And it gets them a Mist Meadow Witch. I think they just seem to be looking for blockers at this point. They can't make use of that because it's Azorius. So that is literally just a 1/1 blocker for them. But this does have Persist, so they'll be able to... Oh, there's no other creature for them to grab, actually. Beacon of Unrest is going after Shriekmaw. So what do they want to grab here? Yeah, they want to do that thing. That makes perfect sense. And they can put that under the Mimic Vat and make use of... Yeah, I would actually have... Yeah, I think I would have put that under the Mimic Vat. One, just in case we get it back, and two, they can actually make use of it with their Shriekmaw. They do have colourless mana in Temple of the False God. Puppeteer Click. Oh yeah, that exiles at the end of their turn, so that actually isn't a blocker. Okay, we get into a land. I think we just want to swing in, don't we? We can get in some blockers with Elspeth. We can hold up to Fairy in case they wipe the board next turn. They'll block with the Puppeteer Click here, I imagine. Or they can get down a... Yeah, they can get down a Glenalandra. That won't come back in with Persist, I don't think, because it is a token. Or even Mind Sensor was going to die either way, no matter what blocked it. Hopefully, I'll be able to go wide here. I did. This game has swung left and right. I thought we were looking pretty good in the early game, and then our opponent came back and we were just drawing into lots of lands. Followed by... Looks like we might be able to have a chance of coming back here, so it's up in the air at the minute. Okay, that is going to be 4 damage dealt to our opponent. And they will keep their Shriekmaw. But Shriekmaw... Yeah, Shriekmaw can't be blocked, can it? I don't think there's any way for us to do anything about Shriekmaw. I forgot about that because it has Fear. It can only be blocked by artifacts and or black creatures. There's no way for us to get a colourless creature out. We can't wipe the board with Elspeth. Yeah, that's irritating. Our opponent has it here, I think. This is a white spirit that it throws out. Yep, certainly is. And where is that? Eldrazi Displacer. Yeah, that's colourless. Yeah, I wonder if I could have played that differently so that we could have survived there. Well, we draw a card again next turn. You never know, we might be able to deal with that Shriekmaw. And get rid of the Aven Mind Sensor, which means that they are hoping to be able to tutor for something at some point. I don't think they need to, though. And so if we destroy all creatures power 4 or greater, yeah, that doesn't get rid of the Shriekmaw, unfortunately. That's what we're bothered about currently. We can even survive the Puppeteer Click if we want to. And we'll go in for a bit more mana with Chromatic Lantern. We'll draw a card next turn thanks to Ephara. And that token is exiled, but it's already gone. Opt. Well, Opt might get us into something. We can at least throw a card away from the top of our library if we don't like it. Okay, going for Gonti again. So let's go for... What do we go for here? To Fairy. We don't need that colourless mana held up anymore. Actually, no. We're tapping out all our blue mana. We'll go for Opt first. I mean, we've got all the blue mana we want thanks to Chromatic Lantern, but Return to Dust doesn't do anything. Oh, and this token has haste anyway, doesn't it? Yeah, I don't think we're surviving this. We just have to hope our opponent doesn't swing in with that Shriekmaw, but I don't see why they wouldn't. They can just respond. Yeah. If we go to exile the Mimic Vat with that, yeah, and we get into nothing. If we go to exile Mimic Vat, then they can just make a token in response anyway. Well, we'll see. Looks like Gonti has it here. It's been a good back and forth. These are exactly the kind of games that I want to be uploading. I don't think there's any means of us having our opponent lose life. And I'm hoping our opponent's not just toying around with us here. If they know that they can swing in with Shriekmaw, then they obviously don't know what's in our hand, so it's fair enough if they want to play around it, but they shouldn't play with their food too much, I don't think. They only have 5.5 minutes on the clock. They should be able to wrap things up way before that occurs. Close out the graveyards now, and we will instead open up the cards that are exiled here. Oh, and they go for our Torrential Gear Hulk. Looks like they're just playing with their food here. I do want to always give my opponent the satisfaction of swinging in with a win, but if they're just going to keep playing around like this, I'm not going to sit here and let them toy with us. Okay, they go for Scour from Existence. Maybe they go for Ephara there. I can't see them being too worried about Elspeth. Well, they shouldn't be. They should be thinking about swinging in with the Flyers and the Fear creature that they have. Okay, our opponent has decided to go for Sculpting Steel. I am inches away from quitting currently. Don't know why they needed a Chromatic Lantern. That doesn't make all their land swamps, it just means that they all tap for any colour. Okay, we're finally getting round to combat by the looks of it. And yeah, our opponent does remember to swing in with the Shriekmaw. The only hope that we had there was that they didn't swing in with Shriekmaw, or we had a colourless creature in play. So we'll just take it. And that is a good victory for our opponent. A little bit of playing around there, which they shouldn't have done. If you think you have the win on your opponent, you should go for it. I appreciate that they didn't know what cards were in our hand, but any play that they made there, they could have done that on their second main phase, and it wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference. So yeah, just a word of advice from someone who's played for a long time. If you're new getting into Magic, don't mess around with your opponent. Just have a bit of respect for their time. But apart from that, really good game. Good back and forth. We looked like we were getting the advantage in the early game. Then our opponent clawed it back, and then we somehow managed to claw it back after just ripping into a few lands. I wonder if we hadn't have ripped into those lands, if we could have got together a victory sooner. Let's see, yeah, Dissertation. Oh no, not Dissertation, Desertion. That allows us to steal our opponent's creatures. Or one of their creatures. Eerie Interlude. Yeah, you never know. Maybe. But that is Ephara, God of the Polis. And if it continues to be as popular as it was originally when I first brought it out, then I will put a bit more thought into this deck and actually replace out some of the cards. Mizium Meddler, for instance, I don't ever seem to really get much use out of, so that's something we can work on. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. I'm Tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.